Have you ever felt the crushing weight of failure? Not the minor disappointment, but real, seismic failure. The kind that shakes your foundations. That ice-cold feeling in the pit of your stomach when everything you planned for, everything you fought for, everything you were, crumbles before your very eyes. A project that consumed your soul, rejected. A business built with blood and sweat, turned to dust. A relationship that defined your world, ended. A dream that was your compass, now a dead star in the sky of your mind. We live in a culture that has built an altar to success. We worship it, display it, filter it to look even brighter. And in the dark side of this temple, we hide failure like a shameful disease, a character flaw. We fear it. We run from it. And when it, with the inevitability of a force of nature, catches up to us, we let it define us. We let it break us. We feel it as a final verdict, an indelible stamp on our forehead. Not enough. But what if I told you that this is the biggest and cruelest lie we tell ourselves? What if failure wasn't the abyss at the end of the road, but the very raw material with which the road is paved? What if there was a way not just to survive failure, but to use it like the fire of a forge, to shape an unbreakable inner strength? Over 2 millennia ago, in a world of chaos, amidst plagues, civil wars, and the dizzying instability of the Roman Empire, a group of philosophers found the answer. They were not academics isolated in ivory towers. They were men in the arena of life. They were the Stoics. Men like Seneca, the wealthiest man in Rome, advisor to the Emperor Nero who faced exile, the loss of his fortune, and finally, an order to take his own life. Men like Epictetus, who was born a slave with a broken body, and who became one of the most revered teachers of his time, teaching that true freedom is not found in the body but in the mind. And men like Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, the most powerful man in the known world, who wrote in his private journal not of his victories, but of his own failings, his anxieties, and the constant struggle to be a good man in a world on fire. Failure was not an abstract concept for them. It was the air they breathed. But they did not fear it. They welcomed it. They dissected it. They transformed it into wisdom, into strength, into virtue. Today we will descend into the catacombs of this ancient wisdom. We will unearth, piece by piece, the mental tools the Stoics used to face defeat head-on and emerge on the other side, not just intact but strengthened. This is not a journey for the faint of heart. It is an invitation to look at your own wounds not with self-pity, but with the cold curiosity of a surgeon and the vision of an alchemist who knows that, with the right technique, they can turn lead into gold. If you are tired of being a hostage to fear, if you seek to build an inner citadel that no external storm can breach, and if you wish to learn the art of turning your greatest falls into your greatest ascents, this content was forged for you. So take a deep breath. Give this video a like so this message can find other souls navigating troubled waters, and subscribe to the channel. With each video, we descend another step on the ladder of self-knowledge. The journey into the shadows begins now. The first and most fundamental lesson the Stoics teach us about failure is, in fact, a radical redefinition of what failure truly is. It's a perspective shift so profound it changes the entire game. For them, the overwhelming majority of our suffering comes not from the event itself, but from our mistaken interpretation of it. And it all begins with a simple, yet absurdly powerful distinction: the dichotomy of control. Epictetus, in his Enchiridion or Handbook, a pocket guide to life, opens with this brutally clear and liberating truth: some things are within our power while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are our body, our property, our reputation, our office, and, in a word, whatever is not of our own doing. Think about that for a moment. Let that idea sink in. Reflect on the last time you felt like a failure. Was it a job interview that went poorly? Did you control the interviewer's questions, their mood, the other candidates, the company's budget, or someone else's internal connections? No. What did you control? Your preparation, your research on the company, the honesty and clarity of your answers, your punctuality, your posture. Was it a business that failed? Did you control the global economy, the sudden shift in consumer behavior, the arrival of a disruptive competitor, a new government regulation? No. What did you control? Your business plan, your work ethic, the way you treated your employees and customers, your management of resources, your willingness to adapt. We torture ourselves, we psychologically whip ourselves because we tie our sense of success and failure to outcomes that were never, and will never be, under our complete control. The Stoics saw this as a form of insanity. It's like standing on the beach and screaming at the waves not to come ashore. It's trying to command the wind or order the sun not to set. It is a battle lost before it even begins, a guaranteed source of frustration and suffering. I vividly remember a phase in my life when I pinned all my hopes and my identity on a creative project. I worked night after night, turned down invitations, sacrificed weekends, invested not just time but pieces of my own soul in it. I didn't just want it to succeed, I needed it to succeed to validate my existence. I visualized the success, the recognition, the admiration that would come with it. When the project was rejected in a cold, impersonal, and categorical way, the floor opened up beneath me. I didn't feel that the project had failed, I felt that I had failed. My value as a human being seemed to have been weighed, measured, and found wanting. It took me months of painful rumination to understand the fundamental mistake I was making, a mistake Epictetus would have diagnosed in seconds. I had tied my identity, my worth, my peace of mind to an external outcome, the opinion of other people. The project's acceptance was outside of my control. What was within my control? The effort, the dedication, the intention, the courage to create something and put it into the world, the quality of the work I produced with the resources I had. And in that, objectively, I had not failed. I had given my best. The Stoics used the powerful analogy of the archer. A skilled archer does everything in his power to hit the target. He chooses the best bow he can afford, the straightest arrow. He studies the wind, the humidity, the distance. He tirelessly trains his stance, his strength, his breathing. He controls the drawing of the bowstring, the precise aim, the exact, smooth moment of release. All of this is under his control. But the instant the arrow leaves the bow, the result no longer belongs to him. A sudden, invisible gust of wind, an unexpected movement at the target, a microscopic structural flaw in the arrows all of this is in the domain of fate, outside his power. The Stoic archer therefore does not define his success by hitting or missing the target. He defines his success by having executed the shot to the best of his ability, with all his skill and virtue. The result is secondary, a preferred indifferent, but not essential to his self-worth. Excellence lies in the process, in the intention, in the virtuous action. True failure for a Stoic is not failing to get the job, failing to close the deal, failing to win the competition. True failure is always internal. It is failing to act with courage in the face of fear. It is giving in to laziness when discipline is required. It is being dishonest to gain an advantage. It is allowing anger or jealousy to dictate your actions. It is betraying your own principles for convenience. These are the only things that can truly stain us, diminish us, because they are the only things entirely under our command. When you internalize this idea, not as an intellectual concept but as a lived truth, something profound happens. The paralyzing fear of failure begins to lose its power over you. You stop playing a game that is impossible to win, the game of controlling the uncontrollable, and you start focusing on the only arena where victory is always possible. The arena of your own mind, your own choices, your own character. Therefore, the first question you must ask yourself in the face of an apparent defeat is not, "Why did I fail?" but rather, "What in this situation was under my control and what was not? And in what was under my control, did I act with virtue, with effort, and with the best of my intentions?" If the answer is yes, then by Stoic standards you have not failed. You have merely encountered a result you did not expect. And that, as we will see, is just new raw material for your journey. Once we have redefined the battlefield, understanding that true failure is internal, the next step in Stoic philosophy is even more audacious and transformative. Not just passively accepting unwanted external outcomes, but actively using them to our advantage. Transforming them. This is where we enter the art of mental alchemy. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, a journal he never intended for publication, wrote one of the most powerful and quoted sentences in all of philosophy: "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Let the depth of that sink into your mind. What stands in the way becomes the way. This is not empty optimism or a self-help cliché. It is a combat strategy for life. It is an operations manual for resilience. It means that every obstacle, every setback, every painful failure, is not an end of the line. It is a detour that forces us to find a new route, perhaps a better one. It is a raw material that can be broken, melted down, and reforged into something new, something stronger. Think of a forest fire. To a casual observer, it is the image of pure destruction, of total loss. But nature is a Stoic master. The fire clears the dead and diseased undergrowth, allowing sunlight, previously blocked, to finally reach the forest floor. The intense heat causes certain seeds, like those of the jack pine, which could lie dormant for decades, to finally open and germinate. The soil is fertilized with a layer of ash rich in potassium and other essential nutrients. The apparent destruction is, in fact, an act of violent but necessary renewal that ensures the health and continuity of the forest. The Stoics invite us to cultivate a mind that functions like this regenerative fire. Marcus Aurelius continues in the same thought: the rational mind can convert and transform every obstacle to its activity into material for itself, just as a fire masters whatever is thrown into it. A small flame would be extinguished by what is thrown on top of it, but a great fire quickly makes whatever is added to it its own, and from it burns still higher. Failure is the fuel. The rejection of a manuscript forces the writer to re-examine every sentence, to hone their craft, to find a more authentic and powerful voice. The bankruptcy of a company teaches brutal and unforgettable lessons about management, the market, cash flow, and resilience that no business school in the world could teach. The end of a relationship, however devastating, acts as a mirror that reveals our own codependencies, our dysfunctional patterns of behavior, and gives us the chance to rebuild ourselves with more integrity and self-sufficiency. I went through a long period where I felt professionally stagnant. Every attempt at advancement seemed to hit an invisible glass wall. Promising projects were cancelled at the last minute, expected promotions went to other people, ideas were ignored. It was a succession of small and medium failures that, added together, created a narrative of incompetence in my mind. Frustration was a constant, bitter taste in my mouth. I was being impeded, blocked, from following the path I had meticulously planned for myself. It was then that I came across this idea that the obstacle is the way. It was a click, an epiphany. What if these walls weren't there to stop me but to divert me? What if the universe, or the Stoic logos, was telling me, in the most insistent and uncomfortable way possible, that I was trying to break down the wrong door? That this was not my path? I began to look at the failures, not as evidence of my inadequacy, but as data, as feedback. What were they teaching me? I learned that perhaps my strongest skills were not the most valued in that specific environment. I learned that perhaps my core values were not aligned with those of that organization. The obstacle, the wall, forced me to stop banging my head against it, to look around, and to discover other doors, other hallways, other paths that I would never have considered if everything had gone right from the beginning. Failure on Path A was what allowed me painfully to discover and eventually thrive on Path B, a path much more aligned with who I truly was. This mindset transforms you from a passive victim of circumstances into an active and creative agent. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What can I do with this?" Failure gives you precious information, pure feedback, stripped of any politeness. It shows you where your plans were fragile, where your knowledge was insufficient, where your preparation was lacking, where your arrogance blinded you. Most people hate this kind of feedback, consider it a personal attack, and ignore it. The Stoic seeks it out, analyzes it coldly, and uses it to improve. Seneca, in his letters to Lucilius, talks about how difficulties reveal our true character, just as a soldier is only truly tested in the fury of battle. Difficulty is virtue's opportunity, he would say. Failure is your battle. It is your chance to practice courage in the face of adversity, resilience when all seems lost, creativity when the original plan fails, and wisdom to learn from the pain. Without it, you would be a soldier who has never seen combat, a sailor who has never faced a storm. Your virtues would be theoretical, fragile, untested by the fire of reality. Therefore, when failure knocks on your door after the initial shock, do not curse it. Look at it as a stern but fair teacher. Thank it silently for the lesson it is about to teach you. Take the wreckage of your original plan, the broken shards of your ego, and ask yourself with a deliberate calm, with these ruins, what new and stronger thing can I build? Remember, what stands in your way becomes your way. The human mind has a natural and profound aversion to thinking about the negative. We are taught to practice positive thinking, to visualize success, to create vision boards, and to avoid at all costs imagining disaster. The Stoics, with their counterintuitive wisdom, practiced the exact opposite. They called this practice premeditatio malorum, the premeditation or prior meditation on evils. This may sound at first glance like an exercise in morbid pessimism, a recipe for anxiety. But it is, in fact, one of the most powerful and effective tools for building psychological resilience and neutralizing the poisonous power of failure. It is not about wallowing in a spiral of worry about what might go wrong. It is a mental rehearsal, a strategic flight simulation to prepare for the inevitable turbulence of life. Seneca, a master of this art, recommended that every day, ideally in the morning, we set aside time to contemplate the worst-case scenarios related to our plans. Whatever can happen, expect to happen, he advised. Are you going to give an important presentation at work? Imagine the projector breaks, that you draw a blank and forget a crucial part of your speech, that the audience seems bored, disinterested, or even hostile, that your boss criticizes you harshly in front of everyone. Are you going to launch a new product or business? Imagine sales are a complete disaster, that the media criticism is merciless, that a competitor launches something better and cheaper in the same week, that you lose all the money you invested. Are you in a happy relationship? Imagine for a moment the pain of separation or loss. The goal of this somber exercise is not to despair. The goal is, in fact, threefold, and each layer is profoundly therapeutic. First, and most obviously, it is to rob failure of its most dangerous element: surprise. The blow you don't expect is the one that knocks you out. The adversity that comes out of nowhere is what throws us into panic and confusion. The blow you see coming, you can parry, dodge, or at the very least, tense your muscles to better absorb the impact. By mentally rehearsing the disaster, you make it familiar. If and when it happens, in part or in full, a part of your brain will say, "I've been here before. I've thought about this. I know what to do." It's not the end of the world. The panic reaction is replaced by a relative calm, as the initial shock has already been processed and dissipated in the safety of your imagination. Second, premeditatio malorum forces us to create contingency plans. By imagining the projector breaking, you remember to print out handouts. By imagining drawing a blank in your speech, you prepare cue cards with key points. By imagining weak sales, you start thinking about alternative marketing strategies or how to pivot the business. The premeditation of evil does not lead to paralysis, but to preparation. It transforms free-floating, vague anxiety into concrete problems for which you can develop practical solutions. You cease to be a frightened passenger and become the pilot who has already studied the emergency route. I remember preparing for a crucial negotiation on which a great deal depended. I was anxious, trying to force myself to visualize only success, the handshake, the favorable deal. A friend, knowledgeable in Stoicism, suggested the practice of premeditatio malorum. Hesitantly, finding the idea depressing, I did it. I spent 30 minutes imagining the worst. I imagined the other side rejecting my proposal outright, laughing at my offer. I imagined them making an offensively low counter-proposal. I imagined the meeting ending in a complete and hostile impasse. For each of these nightmare scenarios, I calmly asked myself, and then what? What would I do? What would be my plan B? How would I react with calm, dignity, and professionalism, regardless of the outcome? When the real negotiation took place, guess what? Things did not go as planned. The initial proposal was met with coolness, and a difficult counterproposal was put on the table. But instead of panic, I felt a strange calm. I had already lived it. I did not react emotionally, I responded strategically, activating one of the contingency plans I had prepared. The practice had given me a shield. And there is a third layer, perhaps the most beautiful. Premeditatio malorum is a powerful antidote to our tendency to take things for granted. By contemplating the loss of your health, you become more grateful for your body today. By contemplating the loss of your loved ones, you embrace them with more sincerity. By contemplating the loss of your job or your home, a practice Seneca called rehearsing poverty, you look at the roof over your head and the food on your table with a new sense of appreciation. The premeditation of evil does not make us unhappy, it increases the value and beauty of the present. It is a vaccine. By injecting yourself with small, controlled doses of imaginary disaster, you develop the mental and emotional antibodies to deal with the real disease when it arrives. You become more robust, more prepared, and paradoxically more peaceful and grateful. Even with the best tools, failure can still feel overwhelming. It can consume our horizon, filling our entire field of vision until nothing else seems to exist. It is in these moments of total immersion in pain and frustration that the Stoics employed a breathtaking visualization technique, known as the view from above, or the Platonic view. Marcus Aurelius practiced this constantly in his Meditations. The exercise is simple in its concept, but profound in its effect. Start where you are, sitting, listening to this voice. Now, in your mind, begin to float upwards. See the ceiling, then the roof of your house. Keep rising, seeing your neighborhood, your city spreading out below you like a living map. Rise higher until your country is just an outline on a continent. Keep rising, seeing the blue and white of planet Earth, a sphere suspended in the velvety darkness of space. But don't stop there. Fly beyond the moon, past the giant planets of our solar system. See our sun become just one more star among billions in our galaxy, the Milky Way. And then pull back even further, seeing our galaxy become a small swirl of light among hundreds of billions of other galaxies, each with its own billions of suns, scattered across a universe of incomprehensible vastness. Now, from this cosmic viewpoint, try to locate that catastrophic failure of yours. The rejected project. The argument with your partner. The lost promotion. Where is it? It vanishes. It becomes smaller than a grain of dust on an infinite beach. The ego, with its sense of self-importance and its personal drama, dissolves in this immensity. The anxiety that seemed so solid and heavy reveals itself as a ghost, a construct of our own mind. This is not a denial of our pain. It is a contextualization of it. It is putting our problems on the proper scale. I remember once making a mistake at work that seemed to me at the time the end of my career. The shame was physical, a heat that rose up my neck. I couldn't think of anything else. At night, instead of sleeping, I replayed the scene over and over. It was then that I forced myself to practice the view from above. I visualized myself, a tiny human being on a small planet, orbiting a mediocre star in a forgotten corner of one galaxy among billions. And the question arose, in 100 years will anyone remember this? In 1,000 years? In 1,000,000 years? The obvious answer, no, was like a bomb. The pressure dissipated. The problem didn't disappear, but its size was drastically reduced to its real value, minuscule. And the Stoics combined this spatial perspective with an equally powerful temporal perspective, summarized in the famous Latin phrase, memento mori. Remember that you are mortal. Again, this is not a morbid thought, but a catalyst for action and clarity. The constant awareness of our finitude, of the brevity of our existence, acts as a radical filter for priorities. Faced with the fact that our time is limited and unknown, the fear of failure becomes absurd. Are you going to let the fear of looking foolish in a presentation stop you from sharing your idea? Are you going to let the fear of rejection stop you from telling someone how you feel? Are you going to let the fear of failing stop you from starting your dream business? Death is the final and inevitable failure of all our earthly projects. And paradoxically, accepting this fact frees us to live more bravely. Why worry so much about small failures along the way, when we are all moving towards the same destination? The question is not if we will ultimately fail to stay alive, but how we will use the time we have been given. Will we spend it paralyzed by fear, or will we use it to act, to try, to create, to love, to learn, even if it means stumbling and falling repeatedly? The view from above shows us that our problems are small. Memento mori reminds us that our time to deal with them is short. Together, these two perspectives form a powerful pincer that crushes the fear of failure, leaving in its place a sense of urgency, purpose, and a profound calm. Your failure is not the center of the universe. It is a footnote in the story of your life, which in turn is a footnote in the history of the cosmos. So, take a deep breath and get back in the arena. We have now reached the summit of the Stoic mountain. The final lesson, the most difficult, the most radical, and perhaps the most liberating of all. It is a concept that the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche would later crystallize with the Latin expression amor fati, the love of one's fate. But its roots are deeply embedded in the soil of Stoicism. So far, we have learned to redefine failure, to use it as fuel, to prepare for it, and to put it in perspective. Amor fati asks us to take a step beyond. It is not just about tolerating what happens, nor even about accepting it. It is about loving it. It is about embracing every event in your life, especially the failures, the pains, and the losses, as if you had chosen them yourself. Epictetus said, "Do not seek for events to happen as you wish, but wish for them to happen as they do happen, and your life will flow well." Marcus Aurelius echoed, "Accept without arrogance, let go with indifference. Everything that happens is as familiar and expected as the rose in spring and the fruit in summer." This is an immense challenge. How can we love illness, betrayal, bankruptcy, loss? The key lies in understanding that life is not a series of random events, but an interconnected, causal web. Every moment, good or bad, is a necessary thread in the tapestry of your existence. To pull a single thread, even the darkest and most painful one, would unravel the entire pattern. You would not be who you are today without every single one of your falls. Your scars are part of your story, part of your strength. Imagine a sculptor who is given a block of marble to work with. He notices that the stone has a dark vein, a flaw, right in the middle. A novice or mediocre sculptor would complain about the material, curse his luck, and perhaps abandon the project. A master sculptor, however, does not see the vein as a defect. He sees it as a unique characteristic. He does not fight against it, he incorporates it into his design. He makes the curve of the dark vein become the contour of a muscle, the shadow of a fold of fabric. The flaw is no longer a flaw, it becomes the element that gives the statue its character, its uniqueness, its beauty. In the end, the flaw has become indispensable to the masterpiece. Amor fati is the art of being that master sculptor with the raw material of your own life. Think of a major failure from your past. One that, at the time, felt like the end of the world. Now, follow the chain of events that unfolded from that point. Perhaps that job you lost forced you to develop new skills and led you to a career you love much more. Perhaps that relationship that ended painfully freed you to find yourself, to travel, to become the person you needed to be before finding a more compatible partner. The practice of amor fati is to look back at the darkest of your failures and be able to say, with sincerity and without bitterness, thank you. I would not be who I am without you. If I could go back in time, I would not change a thing, for that would mean erasing the person I have become because of you. It is a shift from this happened to me, to this happened for me. It is the belief that nothing is superfluous, nothing is a mistake. It is all part of the curriculum. It is all part of the path. This is the final fortress. When you can not only accept but love everything that happens to you, the concept of failure becomes obsolete. How can something be a failure if it is a necessary and loved ingredient in the recipe of your life? The power of the external world over your inner peace is reduced to zero. You become like water, which takes the shape of any container, or like the fire of Marcus Aurelius, which turns everything into its own flame. You become truly free. So, here we are, at the end of this journey through ruin and wisdom. We have seen that for the Stoic, failure is an illusion born from a mistaken focus. We have learned to dissect reality with the blade of the dichotomy of control, separating what is ours from what is not. We have learned to be alchemists, turning the lead of adversity into the gold of virtue with the fire of, the obstacle is the way. We have armed ourselves with the shield of premeditatio malo rum, rehearsing for battle in the safety of our minds. We have risen with the view from above, and anchored ourselves with memento mori, shrinking our fears to their true insignificant size. And finally, we have aspired to the ultimate acceptance of amor fati, to love the entire fabric of our lives, with all its threads, light and dark. This is not a quick fix. It is a lifelong practice. It is a daily training. It is the construction, stone by stone, of an inner citadel. Now I turn to you. Think of the failure that weighs most heavily on your shoulders right now. The one that haunts your quiet thoughts. Look at it, not with fear but with these new tools in hand. What in it was and was not under your control? What is this obstacle trying to teach you? What is the lesson hidden in its ashes? What would it look like to prepare for a similar setback in the future? How small does it look from the vastness of the cosmos? And, the most daring question of all, can you find even a small glimpse of how this exact failure might be a necessary and indispensable step on the path to the person you are becoming? The Stoic path does not promise a life without falls. It promises that if you practice, every fall will make you stronger. Every scar will tell a story of resilience. Before you return to the world, I want you to do one thing. Go down to the comments and share which of these 5 Stoic principles resonated with you the most today. The dichotomy of control, the obstacle is the way, the premeditation of evils, the cosmic perspective, or amor fati. By sharing, you not only solidify your own learning but also light the way for another traveler on this journey. Remember, it is not what happens to you that matters but how you respond. Act with virtue. Act with courage. And turn every ending into a new beginning.